Everybody, Brian Good with you guys for the earliest alert today, because I want to cover a little bit of the longer term as well. But it's been a fun 24 hours, hasn't it, since we at last chatted. This is a complicated setup once again, where this really goes into a lot into showing you how important math is. For those that want to be meteorology students one day, math is crucial in this. When it comes to the butterfly effect as well as the chaos theory, the equations that we use to try to figure out these complex scenarios, you just change that one variable, that one x variable, and you get a completely different outcome. And that's really how the setup was drastic yesterday, because one of the variables was altered once we got some balloon data, weather balloon data, ingested into it yesterday. And it looks like the one that really triggered it was the one off the coast there of Oregon and Washington State. The data from that low offshore, I think, really is what change things up, and I'll show you with that in just a second. Now, having said all that, I don't think this is done settling in entirely yet, only because that same low that I'm referring to is still offshore, and I don't think it's been fully sampled yet. But in general, we are still dealing with a relatively minor setup. It's just remarkable still talking about snow this far into April already. So we'll cover that, and then I'll get you through another one system moving through on Sunday, and then talk a little bit more about the longer term. All right. As always, guys, appreciate your patience. There's been so much negativity on wintry weather, it seems like, on social media. I never understood that. And severe weather, not so much. Nice days, hardly ever do I hear any complaints. But you get into wintry weather and some mean thoughts come out. And I'm not just talking about just with you guys that are diehard fans and weather enthusiasts. I'm referring to others within the field that get real excited about this kind of stuff. So anyway, it's just weather. All right, we can't control it. Let's enjoy it, learn from it, and try to enjoy the weekend. That's the whole goal here, guys. It's Friday, so let's dive right on into the current setup. 47 degrees here in Louisville, 45 into Bedford, 45 in Paoli. All right, looking at the satellite image, we do have some high-level clouds overhead, kind of making that milky-looking sky in spots, kind of hazy. We will enjoy, though, a decent amount of sun for a while. Now, I've got us in at about 62. I'll evaluate the numbers coming up here within the hour, decide whether or not I can push that a little more. It depends on how quickly we can go overcast. And the reason why I say that is because the first wave, there's two systems, by the way, affecting us over the next 30 hours. And it's the first one that I'm growing more and more unimpressed with. And I think that could alter the rain and snow chances in general, and even the sky cover. All right, so I'll stop being vague, I promise. Let me get into the longer view here, the wider view. And you can see one system to the northeast of us. Let me get to the west coast, though. This is the one I'm talking about that seems to be causing some issues with our setup here. It's a weird-looking arrow. I apologize. Right here off the shore. This is the one I think it got some data sampled into it, because you got more like almost like a near Pineapple Express kind of look to the flow coming into California. So there are pieces of energy involved in this flow. And that is what's getting involved in the upper air network now and really evolving things. But here is how I have noticed a trend. This first wave here that is passing through tonight, and I still feel this is the one that was originally going to be connected into this one and would have been a much bigger system tonight, of course, but they're offset. Having said that, there is another little wave that is moving in, riding through here, and it is somewhat better aligned with that wave, and it's going to be interesting to see the connection these will have. Now, some models take this piece and keep it way to the south, and there's no phasing, although other models are trying to hint there could be some phasing, but not quite. Close, but not quite. Close doesn't count, though, when it comes to the phasing scenario. So it's the second piece that I think is more interesting to watch. At the moment, the weather alerts that are out are just the winter weather advisory, East Kentucky and West Virginia area. All right, and Washington, Marion, and Franklin counties, you guys are included in that as of now. And I think what they are honing in on is what I'm about to show you is that second piece, not so much the first one. Here is the RPM. I think has a good handle on, at least somewhat of a handle on describing what I'm saying here for this afternoon. Watch how this first piece is to our south. We're 60 or 62 degrees, increasing clouds. There's your rain. Now, let me take you to the overnight. Not much really happened. We have some brief rain or snow shower trying to show up there on the banding, which would be somewhat of a deformation band of that low. Very weak forcing, so I really don't want to call it that. But that's it. So if I see trends on this and some of the high risk stuff come in, guys, I am tempted to take our chances for anything tonight down to 20 or 30%. And I think that could very well affect the winter weather advisory too, in my opinion. But the second one, that is the one I think that still needs to be watched. It moves in across the south, but it is slightly more phased. There's a little bit more of a northern tug. This would be a little bit more of a deformation zone of that low. I would call it that. I would lean in that direction a little more than I would the first one. So this is the one I think, if there's going to be any little surprise, couple inches of snow kind of deal, it would come from this little guy here. But notice the clock. Because it's the second piece, it's later in time, so now we're dealing with daylight, and the sun angle's high, so now you're like, okay, well, yeah, it could be snow, but it's going to have to come down now even harder than it would at night to accumulate over the warmer ground. And if you're dealing with the solar energy of the sun being above the horizon, then you've got a tough task. So while that looks a little more impressive, it's just the timing would then smack me back the other way, saying it's going to do nothing. I know, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, it's how I feel lately. But here is that wave. Just worth watching, guys. And we'll see how the high-res models that are just now really getting into that time period can narrow that down a little more. So, having said that, there is a chance that for Indiana and far northern Kentucky that we may not get anything. Sprinkle or flurry, and that may be it for the whole shebang. If that second piece especially stays to our south. Now, if the second piece wants to phase a little more and get pulled more north, then we do have a little more of a game here to talk about. But right now, it doesn't appear to be the case. As always in meteorology, guys, you got to go with your gut in many cases. Being from here, typically what happens for us is usually the opposite of what the models say. But you also have to keep in mind you got to trend with the models and not take one model run and run with it, which is why yesterday when it switched, it's like, yeah, we need to give it more time. Got to trend it, and the trend continued to show that, and so we just decided at that point to trend the forecast that way. But you can't just react to one model run; you'll go insane. Okay, so enough on that speech. So then we get into a cold setup Sunday morning. Now, without any snow on the ground, our record lows look to be fine now. Here's Sunday's wave, which I talked about briefly yesterday. Oh, it cuts off again. I'm sorry. It does move in, but it's a warmer setup with that one, so it could go to snow, but that one's going to have a harder time to get down to the freezing mark at all. So I think a lot of it would melt. So right now I'm not too impressed with Sundays. I couldn't roll out a grassy accumulation across Indiana. Just stay tuned. We'll watch it. Now here's what I want to show you guys. This is how the pattern looked Wednesday for tonight. All right, and it was showing this first wave fairly strong with the band of heavy snow along I-64. The second wave is there, but weaker. There's a weaker low off the eastern seaboard, and the low off the coast, the Pacific coast, is stronger up toward portions of Maine, or excuse me, Portland area into Seattle. So look at those features there. Now let me show you what it looks like today. It's stronger with this feature, which means it is causing a little bit more of a dip in the jet here, a little more flatter look. So this one's going quicker to the east, and therefore not have a chance to really dig and go north. But look at the second wave. It is stronger. The Pacific Northwest is a bit weaker and a little more offshore, in fact. So it seems like this one's trying its best to still the show here in the pattern, especially with this one still in the show. It makes sense, the 1, 2, 3 idea. And then this one in the middle here, which is the one coming in tonight, would suffer and fall apart. That's the way I'm seeing the pattern trying to evolve here tonight. So we'll keep an eye on it. All right, looking ahead into next week, we do have a chance to really see a decent low move in across the plains. This could occlude, which means it'll slow the cold front portion down. GFS moves the rain and thunderstorms in here Saturday morning. The Euro, which you're looking at here, waits until Sunday morning, or basically Saturday night. Chance certainly there for us to get to 80 degrees, but as far as severity on thunderstorms, I can't really tell you that because this is too far out to know that. But it does look warmer, at least toward the end of next week and next weekend, and that's all that really matters at this point. Hang in there, guys. Much more in the long-term plan, including Thunder, Louisville, and Derby stuff. I'll try to get much more focus on that starting next week. All right, take care.